Hi, everybody. So we are going to check out Orpheus Takes a Solo. This is from Percy Jackson's Greek Heroes by Rick Rioran. And as we check this out, I want you to focus on the fact that this story, this mythology is being told through the perspective of a teenage Greek god. So we're looking at those kind of intersections and those kind of limitations or gains in that perspective. So follow along. Let's check this out. Good old Thrace, my favorite post apocalyptic wasteland, where life was hard, priests made blood sacrifices to Eris, and kings raised horses that ate human flesh. Sounds like a sort of place where a young boy would become a sharp player, right? That's where Orpheus was born. Of course, the Beatles were from Liverpool, and Jay-Z was from the projects in Brooklyn. So I guess music can come from unpredictable places. That's the way Orpheus's parents met. That was more unpredictable. His dad was a Thracian king named Oigris. Good luck pronouncing that. Ohagris, maybe. When Ohagris was young and single, he liked partying and singing as much as he liked fighting. So when the wine god Dionysus and drunken his drunken army rolled through town on their way to invade India, Oigris welcomed them with open arms and a cup that needed refilling. You're invading a foreign country for no particular reason, Oigris asked. I'm totally in. Oigris gathered his men and joined the wine god's expedition. At first, everything was rainbows and Chardonnay. Oigris got along great with the wine dude's followers, especially the Maenads, crazed nymphs who like to tear apart their enemies with their bare hands. A Thracian could appreciate that. Every night at the campfire, Oigris drank with the Maenads and sang the Thracian ballads. The guy had a rich baritone voice when he sang a sad tune, and he brought his listeners to tears. When he sang an upbeat number, he got everybody dancing. In fact, he sang so well, he attracted the attention of a muse. My brother Tyson is here. He thought I should say moose. No, Tyson, the guy in the story did not attract the attention of a moose. Tyson is sad now. The nine muses were immortal sisters who oversaw different arts like singing, drama, charades, dubstep, tap dancing, and maybe some other stuff. I've forgotten. Calliope, the oldest muse, was in charge of epic poetry. She guided writers who were telling stories about heroes and battles, and you know what? I realized I should have made a sacrifice to her before I started writing this book. It's totally her territory. Oops. Sorry, everybody. This book is not officially endorsed by the proper muse. If it explodes in your hands, my badness. Anyway, like all the muses, Calliope had a soft spot for music. From her apartments on Mount Olympus, she heard Oigris singing as he marched east with the wine god's army. Calliope was so entranced she flew down invisibly to check out this drunken warrior with the beautiful voice. Wow, what a singer, she sighed. Even without proper training, Oigris was a natural talent. He sang with so much emotion and confidence, he wasn't bad looking either. As the army marched, Calliope, I think I'm saying that right, followed, circling invisibly overhead like a large stealth seagull, just so she could hear Oigris sing every night. Finally, Dionysus reached India. If you've read my other book, Greek Gods, you know his invasion didn't work out too well. The Greeks crossed the Ganges River and got their butts handed to them by a bunch of fire throwing Indian holy men. In a panic of retreat, Oigris ran to the Ganges. But he forgot one tiny detail. He couldn't swim. Hordes of drunken warriors and maenads trampled him as they tried to get away. Oeagrus would have drowned uh, if Calliope hadn't been watching. As soon as he went under, he dove into the river. She dove into the river. Somehow, she wrestled him onto her shoulders and carried him to the opposite bank, piggyback style. That must have looked pretty odd. A lovely lady in white robes emerging from the Ganges, with a hairy Thracian warrior on her shoulders. Dionysus's army marched back to Greece in a dejected mood. Calliope and Oeagrus had a wonderful time. During the journey, they fell in love. By the time the Thracians got home, Calliope had given birth to a demigod named Orpheus. The boy grew up in Thrace, which wasn't an easy place for a sensitive young musician. His dad lost interest in him when he realized Orpheus would never be a warrior. If you gave the kid a bow, he'd pluck a tune on the bowstring. If you gave him a sword, he'd drop it and scream, "I hate sharp edges." The other kids teased and bullied and shunned Orpheus until he learned to use his music as a defense. He gradually realized that his singing could bring the most hostile bully to tears. He would escape a beatdown by playing his reed pipes. His attackers would just stand there, enchanted, and let Orpheus walk away. Every weekend, his mom, Calliope, took him for music lessons with the other muses. Orpheus lived for those visits. His immortal aunts taught him everything they knew about music, which was basically everything. In no time, the kid outshone his teachers. Orpheus had his mom's finesse and divine skill. He had his dad's raw talent for mortal edginess. The muses had never heard a voice so beautiful. They gave Orpheus a bunch of different instruments to try: a drum set, a French horn, a 6/7 Telecaster. Orpheus excelled at all of them. And one day, he found an instrument that would make him famous. The only problem, it belonged to a god. One weekend, Apollo visited the nine muses to get their input on his new musical, 25 Awesome Things About Me, a sequel to 20 Awesome Things About Me. Apollo played them a few songs on his lyre, while Orpheus sat in the corner of the room, listening in astonishment. He had never heard a lyre before. No mortal had. Back then, Apollo had the only one in existence. Hermes had invented one out of a tortoise shell, two sticks, and some sheep tendon strings, because Hermes was a boss. He'd given it to Apollo to avoid jail time for cattle rustling. Long story. And the lyre had become Apollo's prized possession. After a few songs, Apollo set down his instrument and gathered the nine muses around the piano on the other side of the room. While they were in deep discussion, trying to figure out the nine harmonies for a big finale, Orpheus walked over to the lyre. He couldn't help himself. He picked up the instrument and strummed a chord. Apollo shot to his feet. His eyes blazed with anger. The nine muses dove for cover, because nobody picks up a god's toys without permission. Only two things kept Apollo from blasting the kid to ashes. First, Orpheus was holding the lyre. Apollo didn't want to damage it. Second, Orpheus launched into the most incredible song Apollo had ever heard. The boy played as if the lyre were part of his own body. His fingers ran across the strings, coaxing out impossible sweet melodies and counter melodies. The nine muses wept with joy. Apollo's anger evaporated. Orpheus's music was full of pain, mortal pain, and sadness. No god could have made music so raw. Apollo appreciated that. Twice before, Zeus had punished him by turning him temporarily human. Apollo remembered how difficult that had been, his divine spirit trapped in a fragile body of flesh. Orpheus's music captured the feelings perfectly.